Anyway, let's go ahead and get started. I put together this.
Should I just
Man,
speak louder?
I'm not entirely sure, but I know that. Are you still listening to the stream? Because I hear myself delayed through your. Were you able to
Yes,
mute that?
I'm still listening to the stream.
Oh, okay. So that's probably going to create like a weird feedback loop for everybody. Um, so, and the only noise that you're going to hear from the stream is the music and me. So, my suggestion is to just mute the stream, fire up your own music if you like my music, which I realize is super dope. It is a playlist called Eat Static. Everybody needs to check it out. It's on Spotify. No, they're not sponsoring me, but if they want to, I'm happy to tell everybody about all my playlists. Larry of the G Cloud, thanks for rejoining us from the call. I am still hearing myself delayed. I have got to figure this out. Let's see here. Um, let's see. Give me a moment to troubleshoot, friends. You can't hear me in Zoom? Oh no, this again. Uh, can you hear me now, Miss Maya? You can hear me via Zoom. Now I hope this doesn't get botched up in some strange way. Say something, see if I can hear you.
I can't hear you in the Zoom.
No, she can't hear me. Um, oh no, and I gotta. This is gonna be weird. Let's see here. Slack.
But I can hear you in the stream, and if I just mute myself every time I'm not talking, then it's fine. Right?
Yes. Just just unmute to ask your questions and then remute, and you're just gonna have to wait the 4 second delay to hear my response, I suppose. I've had worse problems. Okay, well, let's let's give this a look see and see what happens. Guido, your laptop's still chilling out since I lowered that frame rate. Technology is grand, especially when you try to marry uh, several forms of it. It's just actually turns into a nightmare. Um, uh, Specifically, when I try to use a tool, which I believe was essentially a Microsoft product, if I'm not mistaken, in Linux, it's just giving me all the sass. So anyway, Maya, you're welcome to listen along. You've already done all this, but I'm just going to run through it again for any first time viewers that we may have. I got to load. Let's back up. I need to mute and pause all other sources and begin. Guido, next time, my man, and I know you're coming to see me from the European side, and I appreciate that. So next time you come see me before I stream, I'm gonna give it a try at 720 to see if I don't have to reset up my entire like broadcasting setup and uh, all the hardware settings. If it's a quick easy thing, I'll definitely make that happen. Especially if everybody says they can still see the text on the screen in high enough resolution and that sort of thing. But let me work on it. I'm writing it down right now. Guido 720p question mark. All right. Note taken. So one's first day of programming is generally met by someone who has experience like using a computer in a desktop environment like Windows or Mac. But in a lot of cases, uh, you're hired on at a new place, and then if you're lucky enough to have like an expense account dumped in your lap, and they tell you to go buy whatever hardware you want, well, then this part of the class is for you. Now, most of us generally walk into an office and they give you a very specific hardware setup, and that's okay. It won't be wildly different from what we talk about, but I still like to talk about, how to properly build a piece of hardware to write code in. And the first thing that you have to consider is the operating system that you want to use to develop software. Windows 10 is an enterprise level piece of software that the majority of us are familiar with. Unfortunately, that comes at a cost. That high-end interface requires high-end hardware, and unfortunately, we don't all have high-end hardware or access to it, especially those of us doing science and working with grants and those sort of things. Funds can be limited, and this is why we're talking about this stuff. We can avoid the expense of Windows 10, which, by the way, is very difficult to set up programming environments in. If you want to compile C++ code or Python code, which is where we're going to get to eventually, you have to install these obscure tools that essentially emulate a Unix or Linux environment. And then, of course, we all know that Microsoft has had a history of being vulnerable to attack from spyware, hacker, rootkit, virus, you name it. Windows is the number one target for the, what shall we call them, the assholes that write software to steal our data and that sort of thing. Mac is the next choice. Now, Mac is a wonderful blend of a super stable environment to code in and a super stable and easy to use interface. But unfortunately, having both of those is the one that costs you the most, right? So we all know you can get a Windows 10 laptop for well under $1,000, and the very lowest end iMac is somewhere in the, I think, $900 range, isn't it? That tiny little puny Air Mac is, I think, like $899 or something. And if you want a 15-inch full-blown Macintosh laptop, those are getting closer to $2,000. So let's see. I'm going to catch up with a little chat here. We got chat getting lively. We got to talk to chat. Okay. Windows 10 runs on your 10-year-old machine. That's actually pretty impressive, but I bet if you installed Visual Studio and all the frameworks that you need to program on it, it might not anymore. I would be interested to see some benchmarks on a 10-year-old piece of hardware running Win 10 with Visual Studio, and I can barely get it to run on this rig I got at home, and this one's less than a year old. And of course that's slightly exaggerated, but okay. So moving on, Linux, which is where I've settled because I'm just a poor college student who can't afford top-end hardware, and I can't afford to have the top-end hardware with a super buttery graphical user interface installed with it. So I buy my hardware myself and install a free operating system, Linux. I'm currently running Fedora 27 on this rig. I run Ubuntu 16.04 on my work laptop alongside of Windows Dual Boot. And this, of course, this rig is also dual booted with Windows 10. And then my little Chromebook behind me here, I run I want to say it's an Ubuntu spin called Gallium OS. It was designed specifically for Chromebooks, which is what that is. And so that's what I'm doing. Most of my hardware has Linux on it because that's where I prefer to... Hell, I prefer to game there too. Um, all right, Sweet Chuck likes Xubuntu. I've seen that distro. I've never installed it on anything. But yeah, any Linux distro comes out of the box ready to do Perl PHP. Most of them, Java's kind of tough. You gotta install a package, I think, to get Java's developer kit, and then I think Python comes out of the box that way too. So after you choose an operating system and put it on your hardware, you have to then install software. Uh, let's see, Uncle Bill Druin is running XFCE desktop on Ubuntu, and he's down. Yeah, no, that's the great thing about XFCE for on any distribution of Linux. It makes 10-year-old hardware look and run well. Um, Thanks for joining us, by the way, Sweet Chuck. We appreciate you stopping in tonight. So we'll talk a little bit about installing the software. Once you got your operating system is software, but I'm talking about the software to develop and to compile or run scripts or whatever in. So choosing a language is the next step. When you're given, we have an idea of something that you want to program a computer to do to make your or someone else's lives easier. Then you have to choose a language to do that in. Well, since if this were a 300 level computer science class, we'd be talking about C++ probably, or Java, or R, or Golang, or numerous other languages. But since we're doing a day one, I wanted to use something with as natural a syntax as far as language is concerned as possible. And to me, that's Python. Um, but C++ is a choice for large enterprise level applications. There is a point where Python may not do the trick anymore if an application gets large enough, complex enough, multi-threaded enough. But man, they're doing a great job of keeping up and producing quality libraries that makes people's lives easier, which is what we're after. We want scientists to be able to write software but do the science instead of like fussing over writing the software. That's the whole point. Advancing science is hard when you're advancing your education to program, and then by the time you've learned to program that, somebody's already done it and moved on. So it's such a frustrating process. We really want to streamline this so scientists can focus on science and engineers can focus on engineering, and marketing people can focus on marketing. Programming is the new typing. Like they used to make people take typing in high school. Now they need to make them learn how to program. This should be a basic skill. If you're worried about automation taking over the world, learn to program. Somebody's got to program that automation, right? So Java is a little more friendly as far as syntax language is concerned. It's got a great epic library that makes coding Java much easier. And it's most beautifully, it's just cross-platform instantaneously. Every machine has its own virtual Java machine already on it. And when you run Java code, that is fired and your machine is ran inside of that. So that's what makes Java great, but it's a little more cryptic, and we'll get to that here in a few minutes when I show you the difference between the Hello World applications in these three languages. And then like I say, we talked about let's see, Python is our choice for this one. In my opinion, it has the smallest learning curve. I remember learning about Python in my third year of the computer science degree, and I was so mad that they didn't start with teaching us this language, because it's the most phonetic. It has the most natural language. When you read it, it mostly sounds like English. Just about anybody with a relatively logic mind can look at Python code and at least give a guess as what it does. And it's because of things like using the word and instead of two ampersands next to each other, or using the word or instead of using two pipes next to one another, or using the word not instead of a bang equals, that sort of thing. So Larry's first goal toward world domination is to automate all the things, like just automate everything. That way your mind is free to run the world. Yeah, it's definitely the new, like it's a great entry level language that can do enterprise level things. So once we've chosen Python, we have another choice to make, and that's the two branches of Python that are currently available. There's the 2.7 OG triple OG that has been around since, oh gosh, I should know when Python became a thing, but it's been around since the beginning, and about 2012, I think, 2011, they released a 3 point something, which started out by turning the print statement into a print function. That was the big news when it happened, and then of course there are other changes as well. But again, we're teaching a new programmer their first day of programming, so it makes sense to start with 3.6, right? While 2.7, you're gonna deal with the elitists, which we don't tolerate here, by the way. You're gonna deal with the elitists that want you to learn Fortran and Python 2 as part of your learning experience, so you can be a magnificent software engineer like they are. Well, I say poppycock to that, and I say use whatever tool gets you to your destination quickest, regardless of what other people think. But we're going to start with Python 3.6 because that's the easiest one to read yet again. Installing compilers at runtime, then once you've picked your language, this Sigwin tool that I'll link it in chat. The Sigwin is the tool that you have to install on a Microsoft Windows 10 box that essentially emulates that Unix file system to be able to compile and develop code. Mac High Sierra has they've streamlined all these processes into simply installing the Xcode software, which is great, and you could even use Xcode to write Python software. But since not everybody, especially me, doesn't have a Mac to do that, I wanted Maya to code in the same environment that I was coding in. So if something went wrong, she could show me and we could try to repeat that. Anytime you try to teach someone something, it helps to be in the same environment. And then, of course, Linux is the super easiest. And it's just a matter of using your software manager. In Ubuntu, it's apt. In Fedora, it's yum or DNF. And those sort of things. But it's just definitely the simplest in Linux. Because it's already built with developing software in mind. Open source software, preferably. And then I've got some links here for installing the Java environment. It's very similar across. It's got the same web page for all three operating systems. But it's important that you get the Java developer kit and not the runtime environment. The runtime environment runs it, but it doesn't have the tools to compile it and manipulate it that way. So you need the developer's kit instead of the runtime environment. And then installing Python, I've got some links here. Ideally, if you came from the blog posts, you read the homework that I posted with the links to install the software. And if you want to follow along, that is. If you don't want to follow along, that's fine. But Michael's got a question. Why are you using Java as well as Python? Why am I? I'm not. I am only using Python. I was just talking about the process of installing the Java environment on a computer is all I was doing. We aren't doing that for this one. And then once you get your compiling software and all your runtime environment, or not your runtime environment, your developer environments and your compilers installed, then you have to install an integrated developer environment. Some people, Windows users very often use like Visual Studio. Mac users very often use Xcode. Linux users use very simple things like Notepad++ or uh, Visual Studio Code. Even Microsoft has released an open source, like bare bones, modular, integrated developer environment. Uh, and it's okay. I'd still prefer our choice for tonight, which is Atom, ATOM, Atom.io. It's open source. It's very modular. It's very easy to use. As you can see, it's pretty basic. There's no crazy looking stuff going on. I've already got a terminal. What's the word I'm looking for? Package. It's a package. I installed a package that gives me a terminal right here. So let's see. I can just literally Python. Oh no, I didn't type Hello World Py yet. But anyway, I can run it from here. And it's going to run Python 2.7. And oops. Let's quit. Python 3. I have to actually. Yeah, I actually have to specify if I want Python 3. So type Python 3. But anyway. I can compile from here and that sort of thing. So it's literally the only add-on that I maybe I did install some others, but it's one of the very few that I had to install. Yeah, definitely Notepad is going to be a lighter weight tool for sure. But anyway, once we get Atom.io installed, and Maya's already been through this, and if anybody wants me to run through this slow with them while they set it up, that's fine. Speak out in chat, but otherwise I'm just going to be very brief about it so we can kind of get back to what Maya and I were working on so she can join us here within the next few minutes. But basically, the only keyboard shortcut that you need to remember when using Atom is Control-Shift-P. And it's just essentially like a search keyboard shortcuts menu. So we would install package and see the first option there is install packages and themes, and then we'll make sure we're here on install. We select packages and then do a search for terminal, and this platform.ide.terminal is the only one that Maya and I installed, and that is just to give us this little plus symbol here to get us a terminal in here that we can run our Python scripts from. Of course, you can change your theme around too. That's kind of a cool, easy fix to make things easier on your eyes. You got a UI theme and a syntax theme. A UI theme is going to change things like window borders and colors, and then a syntax theme is going to change the way that the code looks in the window. So if you'll notice this hello world and C, yeah, see, Guido can compile on the command line with us because he's an OG Python gangster. Hey, Anya. I think I'm trying to play in the chat right now, but it's giving me an unrecognized command, so I know she can hear me. Anya's one of my coworkers. Don't tell anybody that she's my favorite coworker, but she is, and I think she knows that, and I think anybody else knows it too. But if you'll look here, the syntax change will change the way that this Hello World C++ file looks. You'll see purple, green, and light blue for now. And if I change the syntax theme to, let's go base 16 tomorrow light, as you can see, we've got like a gray, green, black, light purple, so on and so forth. Hey, Maya joined us on in the chats too. Maya's our guest of honor tonight. She's the one that we are trying to help learn how to code. But anyway, I got to change that obnoxious syntax theme back to where I had it. I think it was one dark. Yeah. And then, of course, you can change the whole UI to something light as well. And as you can see there, that gets a little squinty to have to look at, which is why we like our dark themes. And then once you're all done with that, you just close that tab. And I lost my first day programming text. Get back down here. What were we talking about? I don't remember my own objectives. Okay, so we explored the themes. And it says install a few packages that will help us use Python. We did that, and then we got errors, and then we uninstalled them, and we just decided to compile from the command line, like Python coders should do anyway. Okay, let's see here. Yeah, Guido, we're using Python 3.6 for the example code. I don't know that it'd be much different than the print statements. Instead of doing a print, open paren, and then your string inside of the parens, you just do print and then the string inside. The string inside of quotes. And then I'm not entirely sure how other things that we would do tonight would differ. I think everything else might even be the same. But anyway, we're gonna go ahead and get to doing a little. Let's do our hello world. That's what this is all about. Let's see here. Let's go ahead and move this. Let's just close it for now. Oops, save changes. I don't remember making changes to that, but I suppose I should save them anyway. So we're gonna do new file. We're gonna do hello world.py. And then we're going to write hello world, which is, in Python, the dopest hello world of all languages. Let's see here. It's going to be print. I think we like the Oxford comma. We like enthusiasm. And that, friends, is the Python hello world. So we'll jump down here into the, I don't think I'm in the right directory yet here. ls cd my very first day programming, and then we're going to do a Python 3 hello world.py, and that was hello world. So we talked a little bit earlier about why I thought hello world was an easier language to teach in, and I'm going to illustrate for you right now. That was hello world as a single line, a single print statement. Well, let's look at hello world.java. Oh man, where did all this come from, right? Like, what does all this even mean? So in Java, you have to have, a class before you can even write code, and then you have to have a main method. And then inside that main method, you can do your print statement, which, by the way, is not anywhere near as friendly as print, right? Look at this monster. System.out.println. Paranor, sorry, no worries. We appreciate all comers, newcomers, latecomers. We just appreciate everyone showing up to join us. Thanks for coming in and hanging out. There are like what are called aliases you can set up in. I don't have any Java plugins or packages installed, but normally in a Java plugin you could hit sout tab, and then it changes sout tab to system.out.println, and then it gives you this, and then all you got to do is just type in your string here. But anyway, there's a whole lot more to it than that. And then let's look at C++. While not any longer, it's definitely uglier. C++ is just an ugly, not friendly to look at name. You have to include the IOStream library to get started, and then you have to write a main method, and in that method, this is their print. C++'s print statement looks like this: std : cout, less than, and then the string ended with a semicolon. Well, Python, you have to worry about semicolons at the end of lines. You don't have to worry about bracketing things because blocks of code are determined with tabbing and in white space, as opposed to being inside curly braces and using things like a carriage return is the semicolon. It knows that you're done with that line of code when you hit enter. And that's just fewer concepts that you have to help a newer programmer understand to get them started, right? So that was Hello World. And I think from there we decided we were going to go to... Oops. 1, 2, 3. Alright, so we're gonna go look at some conditions, and I've got links in here to learnpython.org because in my opinion it's the best place on the planet to get help with Python or to begin. So I'm just kind of breezing through their little starter tutorials with you folks and with Maya, so to help you kind of learn and be a voice if something doesn't work right, to help you get right back on track immediately. I found that to be the most helpful tool through my entire college career, was having someone I could go to and say, look, I'm working on this problem and I've been stuck on it for a half hour. Do you know what I'm doing wrong? And rather than work on it another hour before I figure it out, somebody could say, oh yeah, you forgot a semicolon or whatever, that sort of thing. All right, chat's been going a little heavy. Let's see what's going on here. Guido being a soldier. Soldier. Yeah, we that's another thing I'd like to bring up really quick now that we've got a few viewers in, is I'd like to do this like regularly, probably weekly. Monday is what I'm feeling heaviest in my heart is a regular day, but I also want to be able to give the Euros at least one or two shows a month too, because apparently they make up about half of our target audience. So I think if that's half of the target, I need to get up in the morning and do an early morning stream so they have a getting off work stream, and then I do these streams when America's getting off work, or North America. A groovy guru. Is that Austin Powers? Anyway, moving on to conditions. Okay, so before we move to conditions, we got to talk about a variable. But we're going to go ahead and create a new Python file called conditions. So we'll right click on our project folder, select new file, and we'll call it conditions.py. Always end your Python scripts with .py. That's how Python knows that it is a Python script. Am I right? So in conditions, if something is true, then do this. Otherwise, it's false, and do something else or nothing. You know what I need to do? I need to find my chapstick. I'm having a chapstick moment. I'm going to get me a drink of tasty beverage. Get some Burt's Bees on these lips and then get right back to this. So pardon me while I pause for uno momento. Alright, the Burt's Bees is popping. My lips are fresh AF. So let's carry on. So, conditions. If this, do this. If not this, do something else. It's called branching, essentially. So in order to branch, you have to ask the computer a question. So we'll set a variable of x equal to 2. Oop, not minus 2, not x minus 2, x equals 2. I'm going to save that because, as Maya and I learned last week, that little blue dot up there means your file hasn't been saved, and it's probably not going to compile the way you think it should. So now that we have a variable, and x equals 2, we can ask questions about it, right? So we'll do this using a print statement, and we'll do a print x double equals 2. So what this is doing is this print function is being asked a question. So it will print the double equals is the single. Let's start with the single first. The single equals will assign the value to the right into the variable on the left. So x single equals 2 puts the integer 2 inside of that variable x. Now, if you want to compare two things, if you want to say, does x equal 2? Well, you can't do it the same way, right? Because it's going to think assigning a variable to it. So we need that second uh, equals sign. So that's does x equal to 2 is what this question is asking right here. So intuitively, we hope that that print statement will print either a true or a false. In some languages, it would be a 0 or a 1, like 0 for false, 1 for true. But in Python, it actually prints the words. And then we'll ask it another question, x equals 3, in an attempt to get it to print out false. And then we're going to get super tricky, and we'll do an x less than 3, which I think should print a true. Pints, I guess. I'm thinking about pints right now for some strange reason. It could be that it's Friday night and I could use a pint. But anyway, so ideally, let's look at this for a moment. We have assigned the integer 2 to the variable x. We've run a print statement on the question, does x equal 2? We've run a print statement on the question, does x equal 3? And we've run a print statement on the question, is x less than 3? So ideally, we get a printout of true, false, true, right? Well, let's see what happens. Let's run a terminal here. And we'll do a Python 3. Guido, have you tried typing Python 3 instead of Python to see if 3 wasn't automatically installed on your box? Because if so, you could just use Python 3 instead of Python to run the scripts with us. So as suspected, you can see here we have a true, false, true. And that, in a nutshell, is conditions, okay? So now we'll do something a little more complicated here. We're going to set a name equals John, and we'll set an age equals 23. And then we're going to get wild with this. We're going to do an if name double equals, quote, John, and age double equals 23. Now we're gonna signify that this will contain a block of code by putting the semicolon in it, and you notice it automatically tabs under that. And then we're gonna do a print. Your name is John, and you are also 23 years old. All right, and then we'll hit enter, and then we'll do another one. If name equals John. Ugh, typing is hard. Go to school, learn to type. Let's see here. Or name equals Rick. Not Rich, Rick. Print your name is either John or Rick, and I forgot my quote marks, which is why that all showed up in gray and purple instead of the green that is associated with strings in this specific syntax highlighter. Okay, so let's look at this. It's saying, so if name contains the string John and age contains the integer 23, we're going to print this. And then again, it's going to say if name contains the string John or name contains the string Rick, meaning either one of these can be true, and it will fire this line of code. And I got a typo there too. So if we look at this intuitively, our output should be what? It should be true, false, true, and then it should print both of these statements, right? So let's see what happens. See? Okay, so here's a perfect example of what I was just talking about, and then I'm going to catch up with chat. But see this blue dot up here? That signifies that that file hasn't been saved. You can see here I fixed that John typo here, but in my output it was not fixed because it didn't compile this. It compiled what it was the last time I saved it. So if I save it and do it again, it will be correct. True, false, true. Your name is John and you are also 23 years old, and your name is either John or Rick. Let's see what's going on in chat. Let's see here. Okay, Uncle Bill says he missed the lack. I haven't been posting the links, but I will. Let's see here. So the conditional uh, looping link that I'm on right now is here. And I have this actual outline on the internet somewhere, Bill, but I'll have to find out where it is for you. And are you in the Weekly Space Hangout chat? Because I could drop it in there for you too if it after the stream. Oh, Michael was the one with my Python 3, and fortified grape juice. I thought Jose was fortified agave juice. Anyway, Uncle Bill, if he has Python 3 installed and he just has his Python soft link set to Python 2, yes, if he types Python 3, it will use a different soft link that points to Python 3. But if he has never installed it, that won't help him. We did do all this before. We are still in the before stuff, Larry. Okay, so Bill, just tag me in the Slack, and after I get done with the stream, I'll drop this outline in there for you, and it'll have all the links and stuff in it for you. So anyway, a little more on conditions. I'm gonna get rid of that stuff for now because I don't want the output to get too overwhelming to where it won't fit in this window on the bottom. But we're gonna do another little something fun. We're gonna set. I shouldn't have erased that because I still needed that. We're going to do an if name in Okay, so what we've done here is we've created what's called an array. That open square bracket and closed square bracket is an array. The comma separates the items in the array, and this array is 2 strings, 1 John, 1 Rick. So the name, the string and name is John. So what this is saying is if this name, John, is in this array, I don't know why I keep hitting G instead of H. And this is our... Hey! Okay, so now's a good time to talk about screwing things up, right? So if you take a quick look at that... Oh, you meant... Okay, so Larry is mixing his Jose with some grape juice. Got you. I am 100% with you, sir. All right, so let's look at this output. See, so trace back. This looks bad, right? We didn't get the output we expected. This is Python telling me what I screwed up. Do you see what happened here? That should have been a single equals, right? Because I'm not trying to compare it to anything there. I'm trying to assign it. So if I remove one of those equals and recompile, then we get our proper output. Your name is either John or Rick, right? Now let's and we'll talk about like this is like if it's true, do something. If not, do nothing. Let's do a real quick what's called an if else, and then we'll move on to looping. Okay, so we'll do set x equal to 2, which it already is, and then we'll do an if x equals 2, print x equals 2. Oops. Else print x does not equal 2. Okay, so here what we have is something different will happen based on whether this is true or false. So if this is true, it's going to run this one. If it's not true, it's going to come to this else statement and run it. So let's, just to prove a point, let's change this to 3 to see if it skips this one and prints this one. Am I right? Let's check it out. What happens. By the way, you can usually press up arrow to repeat the last command, which is how I'm making that text appear like instantaneously. But yeah, as you can see, we got our true, false, true from those three up top. And then we got our second, we got the one from the else statement printed out, x does not equal 2. And of course, if we change this back to 2, we'll get the first one again instead, right? So now here we have x equals 2. And that's an if else. Let's see here. So we have operators called is and not as well. So we have the equals and we have not equals. So what I mean by that is instead of that double equals, we could do an is, I believe. Let's try it and see what happens. So right, so we got the first one because it is 2, and if x not 2, let's see if we get the second one right. We got to save. Control S, by the way, is the keyboard shortcut for that in most environments. Oh no. I think it's is not. Let me double. There we go. It's is not. It's not just not by itself. Yeah, Larry, by the way, and as opposed to installing Cinewin, you could also, if you enable developer environment in Windows 10, you can download an Ubuntu environment. You can download an Linux Ubuntu like virtual machine right into it. It's like super easy. It's installing it off the App Store. But I didn't want to get into that too much tonight. But it's something for you to look into. And then, so we talked about is and not. And I think it's time to move on to looping, which I'll post in the chat for you. So looping, we have, we talked about that array with those 2 strings in it earlier, right? Arrays with lots of things on them. Most arrays have hundreds, if not thousands, if not millions of objects in them. And we want to be able to do something to each of those objects in an array. We would loop on it. And what that means is we would check a condition while the array still has something left in it that we haven't checked. Run this check on this item in the array. Part of my mustache / beard just came out in my mouth, and it was like I thought a spider was on me or something. But anyway, let's talk about that the loops real quick. We'll start a new file. Right click on our project folder. Go to new file. We're going to call this one loops.py. So we're going to create another array called primes, and inside of it we're going to put 2, 3, 5, and 7. This is obviously not all of them, but it's enough for us to prove a small looping point. For prime in primes print prime. Now, I've always kind of frowned upon them using such a similar word for this. So what I'm going to do is, instead of using prime, I'm going to use something completely different. We'll go back to our x, right? So for x in primes, print x. What this does is this is saying, so for each object in the array primes, there's 4 of them here, 2, 3, 5, and 7. For each object, put that object in x, and while that object is in x, run this code on it, and then obviously it's going to print x. And you can change it to anything you want. If prime is a single prime from the primes, so it sort of makes sense, but it's, in order to explain that, it helps if it's completely different to me. It was confusing to me coming up through school and them using such similar variable names. So anyway, what we're going to do, and by the way, arrays are accessed by what's called indices. So this would be indices 0, this would be indices 1, 2, and 3, and they start at 0. Yeah, VirtualBox is cool, but it's resource hoggy. It's hard to run 2 different operating systems on a machine at the same time, and that's what VirtualBox does. So unless you got a pretty beefy joint, I wouldn't recommend it. I would recommend something like just dual booting. But of course, there's technical difficulties alone in that. But anyway, back to this. So what this is going to do, so for each indice in primes, it's going to print whatever's in that indice right here. Let's see. Oh, we changed from conditions to loops, so we got to start over. Okay, so what you see is it printed on each line, each indice, and just to show 9 isn't the next prime. What's the next prime? 11? Just to show that it's literally counting all of them. I just added 1, and there it is at the end. And now I'm going to take 2 out, so you can see that it'll only do it 3 times. And so it just automatically keeps track of that for you. In a language like Java or C++ to write this, you would have to do a for integer equals I. No, for integer I. Let's see. I is less than or equal to... No, less than primes dot length. And then I plus plus to iterate that. And then you got to throw some brackets in here, and you got to do a print primes I. So this is what this looks like in Java. These 2 lines turned into 3. These 2 very plain English lines turn into 3 that, well, not necessarily. You could have done it in 2. You could have done it in 1, really. So that's it in 1 line, but still, as you can see, it doesn't make sense to read it. You couldn't show this line to somebody on the street and say, what do you think that's doing? They'd be like, I have no idea, get away from me, weird person. Up here, for prime in primes, print prime, and you see a list of primes. I mean, it becomes, at least it's more obvious what's going on. Let's see here. Yeah, C equal Chinese. I feel that way sometimes. I feel you, Larry. Okay, so moving on from there, we can do something. I'm going to get rid of this. We're going to do a 4x in range. Range is a cool tool. If you know how many objects or how many times you want a loop to run, use this range. And then you're going to put the top into your range, but not including it. So range 5 means 5 objects from 0 to 4 is what this is going to do, I believe. So we'll do a print x, and then 4x in range. You can pass range 2. Hey, man. Where is my stinking music? Oh, no, you didn't. I pay big money every month for that. Okay, if you pass it 2 arguments, it's a beginning and an end of the range. And if you pass it 3 arguments, it is a beginning and end and how many to iterate by between. So this guy should print this guy should print and this guy should print and by the way, I don't know if I've mentioned it, these little hashtag, these are called comments, and those are things that your compiler ignores. You can put those there to help you or anybody that ever looks at your code understand what's going on, as I just did. So we should get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 3, 4, 5, 3, 5, 7 out of our... No, I said it all wrong, but let me... Okay, so that's where I just run the loop, right? So you got 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, which is what we were expecting. 3, 4, 5, which was what we were expecting next. And then 3, 5, 7, which is what we expected in the end, right? Okay. So we'll do next is what we call a while loop. And what that is that runs eternally until the condition is met. So we'll do a count equals 0. And then we'll do a while count is less than 5. Print count. And then after that, here's our second line in this block of code. And we know that because it's still indented. If we backed out, then this line of code on line 4 would have to wait until this loop was done running before it could run. And then this is count plus equals 1. This means the same thing as count equals count plus 1. It's just, if you'll remember, if you use a single equal, whatever's over here gets put into the variable that's over here. So this is essentially adding 1 to itself and then reapplying it. And this is just a shorthand way of iterating by 1, so to speak. So let me ask you a question in chat. If I were to tab that out, what do you think would happen? I know what would happen, but I want you to know what you think will happen. Do the spaces change anything is what Maya wants to know. I'm not entirely sure what you mean, do the spaces. The spaces, no. The tabs, yes, because right here, this, when it's back butted up against the left edge, is going to do something completely different from what this is going to do with it tabbed in appropriately. I see Maya coming live on her on the Zoom meeting. She's about to ask questions. So anyway, what's going to happen if I incorrectly detab this and bring this count plus 1? So what's going to happen is this while count is less than 5 is going to run eternally, because count is never going to iterate. It's going to print 0, and it's going to check what count is, and it's still going to be 0. It's going to print 0 again. It's going to check what count is. It's still going to be 0, and it's going to print 0 again. And then when it finally finishes that infinite loop, then it's going to pop out here and iterate count by 1. I don't know if, I think it just, yeah, see, as you can see, it's just infinite, and that's still going, by the way. I may have just locked up my computer. I literally may have just locked up my computer. No, I didn't lock up the computer, but Adam is sure seized up. I shouldn't have done that. Because now I gotta kill this. Okay. Let's try this again, friends. Loops. Let's fix this. Okay, so now that that's fixed, it should iterate and print 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? That's good. Oh, I'm in the wrong directory again. CD my very first programming. Now try Python 3 loops. And the proper behavior is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Uncle Bill, yes, that's one of my favorite things. Yeah, Control C, Control Q, Control X, none of it worked, Guido. I had to kill the entire process. But yeah, indentation actually determines the blocks of code. All code on the same indent level belongs in the same block. So like I mentioned, when I detabbed this line that iterates count, I created an infinite loop here, which caused so much trouble that I had to kill the process. But when I tab that in, before it iterates, it will do both of these. It will run the print statement, and then will increment count by 1. Yeah, I ended up, well, it's not a task manager in the sense of Windows, but yeah, similar situation. But anyway, that's where we are with that. We could talk briefly about break. Yeah, let's talk about break. This will be fun. So, while true. So this is going to run while... Well, it's essentially going to run forever because there's no way for me to set true to false because I didn't give it a variable name in this in particular state. But that's where break's going to help us out here, right? So we're going to print count. We're going to stay indented. We're going to iterate count. And then we're going to check our condition here. If count greater than or equal to 5. And we're going to set in another loop. Or not a loop, but a block of code. And then we're going to break. So this will run. This is essentially going to run forever. But here, we're checking count and then breaking out of the loop when it hits 5. So count iterated to 5. This saw that count iterated to 5 and then it broke out, which is why 5 didn't print. All right, let's see. Yes, Larry, but it's not called a try catch. It's called a try finally. It has a very similar like error detection system involved in it, but I don't think, Michael, in Python that's true. I don't think you can hit spacebar 4 times. I guess I could test the theory out here. Hold on, let's try and see. While true for print count plus equals 1. Why did I put a semicolon on the end of that? I'm at work programming in Java right now. If count greater than or equal to 5, break. Alright, so I use spaces instead of tabs. Let's see what happens. I think it worked. Yeah, okay, so I stand corrected. Spaces, and as long as they are indented the same amount, whether it's with spaces or tabs or whatever, it still works. Learn something new every day. I don't know, maybe it's an IDE thing, Guido, because it worked for me and Adam just now, and I didn't think it was the case either, but it sure is, at least in this IDE. It could be Adam like just turning 4 spaces into a tab. It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell. Which is why various environments is a horrible situation to try and teach people in. Okay, so here, one more. 4x in range 10. So we're going from 0 to 9, right? We're going to do an if x modulus 2 equals 0. Now it's probably a good time to talk about modulus too, because this comes up a lot in programming. Modulus is remainder, essentially. If you remember way back in the day when you did math, yeah, somebody gonna bring up Vim right now. No, we are not testing anything in Vim. Let's see. Modulus is a remainder, right? So if division is a slash mark and modulus is remainder. So if x divided by 2 has a remainder of 0, then this is true, is essentially what's going on here. And count is 0. So what is this going to do? This is going to print even numbers, ideally. So 0 modulus 2, it should equal, so it should print 0 to 8. Let's see what happens. Save it. Run it. Oh, odd numbers. Holy shnikes. Oh, continue goes back to the loop. I'm sorry. Uh, continue skips the current block. It skips the print statement is what happens, and goes back to the beginning of the loop. So if it is an even number, it goes back to the end of the loop. If it's odd, it prints, is what happens there. Whoopsie. All right, let's do something else kind of fun here. We're going to do another like if else, only we'll do it with a while loop. So while count is less than 5, print count, and we'll iterate count. And then we'll do an else, print count value reached D. Okay, so this is going to be new to Maya and to folks that have been following along so far too. What this is it's a placeholder in the string that will replace whatever is in this variable in that string when it prints. So what's going to happen is this is going to print the count from 0 to 4, and when it hits 5, it's going to jump into else and print count value reached 5, and then it'll be done, right? So let's test if my I didn't save it. Hey Maya, we didn't save the code. So like I say, 0 1 2 3 4 count value reached 5. That's what we suspected, right? All right, so that's some good looping fun for everybody. We'll go ahead and save that and move on. I don't need the welcome guide over there. Maya is slacking me. Let's see what's going on. She said something's not working on her side. Oh no. What's the matter, Maya? What do you got weird going on? Can you screen share your screen for me?
Apparently, so the colors aren't showing up.
What aren't showing up? I didn't hear what you said, Maya. What did you say wasn't showing up?
The colors aren't showing up, so it's not activating anything.
What? I still didn't hear what you said. All I heard was it's not activating anything. I don't even know if you're having a problem with your IDE or with the code or... Well, not the
colors.
The colors?
Nothing's showing up as active. So if I type something in, nothing's working.
If you type something in, what? Nothing's working. Sorry, friends. Give me just a second to troubleshoot this with Maya. She's got a rage face on. She's upset. Everybody assure her everything's gonna be okay.
I'm gonna try and screen share with you.
Okay, yeah, that's perfect. Screen share. Let me see what's going on. She's laughing at us, chat. She's laughing at us. Which is better than a rage face, right? Man, I'm getting sweaty. I'm about to have to remove this hoodie, and y'all don't want to see me take my clothes off. What? I'm just kidding. There's a t-shirt under here. Maya's still trying to share her screen with me. It should be on the bottom of your Zoom window, like a green button with an up arrow on it. And then it should let you pick all your windows. It won't let you screen share with me? This is Horse Pucky.
It doesn't show up as active.
Oh, this is another Zoom issue. We're going to have to find a way for me and you to chat voice that won't be so weird on the stream. What are you having problems with as far as following along with the code though? Like an Adam, is there something wrong or? Naked Science, yeah, and I'm not your cam boy for that, unfortunately. Yeah, no, Michael, there's a big.
None of the codes that I'm typing in.
So she started talking and I had to stop to hear. Okay, so I am having the worst time understanding where you're having trouble right now. I have no idea what's going on.
Okay, I'm gonna try and figure it out on my side. So I'll let you know.
Okay, Maya's muting us again. All right, let me try and figure out where I was. We were just finishing up looping, and we were going to move on to the next topic, which is functions. This one's more fun. I want Maya to be able to join us on this one. But imagine that you write a piece of code and you keep having to ask it to do the same thing over and over and over again, and you keep typing the same 3 lines of code over and over and over again to determine the average of 3 figures or whatever. I got to lose this hoodie and get a fan going or something. I'm about to melt. You're going to see the Wicked Witch of the West melt in front of your eyes. Give me just a second. Actually, I don't even have to do that. I don't even have to let you watch me. Weirdos. I can make you look at.
Once more, a frantic pilot radios in a report on a UFO.
Hello? 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 Can you hear me? Unmute? Maybe? Can't hear you. Okay. Ah. Okay, you can hear me. Don't get pissed. Okay, we're gonna figure this out. Okay. Hopefully my computer can figure itself out, so then I can get on. We can go back. And then maybe everything else will be working. I can't hear you at all. Okay, let's see. This up, I can pull this up. We're just gonna get everything ready. My computer is finally cooling on. Okay.
My dreams, my dreams.
Man, it's just so hot.
As somebody else. My dreams, my dreams, my dreams, my dreams. As somebody
Let's
else.
see, what else do I need? I think I need this as well. Let's see.
What if people had a battery level icon?
Okay, I'm gonna go back on.
Thankfully, there's
Hello. Can you hear me? I can't hear you. Hello. Oh. Hello. Can you hear me? Oh, there is a delay. I can't hear you. Oh. Hello. This is garbage. Can you hear me? Oh, there is a delay. I can't hear you.
All right, fam. Sorry about that wait. We are getting deeper and deeper into technical difficulties here. Poor Maya, trying to follow along. Maya, I know you can hear me through chat. Why don't you just interact with me through the chat, the text chat, and we'll do the best we can to get through the rest of this night. Um, were you able to get your MacBook and Atom working to where we could run some simple code for you? Do you have my audio back, by the way? All right. Well, I think Maya's going to continue to her laptop was getting too warm and the whole nine. I guess I'm definitely going to have to figure out a way for this to be less. Uh, okay, she needs 1 minute and she can hear me, so it looks like we're back. I'll back up in chat here and answer a couple questions while she she finishes up. Uncle Bill, yeah, Slack has voice call, and if you do a paid account, you can have voice and video. Um, but I was just trying to get her voice so she could just interact directly with me, and I can hear her, but she can't hear me. I think OBS is really screwing up. Like it's dominating my microphone. It won't let other apps use my microphone. So much so that it won't even let me assign it other microphones. I have a microphone on my headset. The webcam has a microphone. I have a pretty nice microphone. What? I forgot the brand name. A Blue Yeti, I believe. A Blue Yeti microphone. This thing is dope. The boss lady loaned it to me. And for some reason, I have 3 microphones available, and not a single one of them will work in any other app. And like I say, OBS, the tool that I'm using to stream, is dominating the hardware, so it won't let me communicate with her in any other way than through the stream. And then there's no way for her to talk back because, as you well know, Twitch, I'm the only one that gets to talk in Twitch. Let's see here. Yeah, Maya's not tied in anymore. Her computer got hot and she had to reboot. Okay, Guido, you have my actually. Well, where'd my pen go? I set 720p, but I'm gonna try 482, and then we'll step it down to 720. See if that is a nice balance, and if it still gets people's rigs fired up, we'll drop it to 480 and see if everyone can still see well. Oh, hey, Maya's got everything working. So Maya, the code that I have on the screen right now, get that punched in there, and then open your terminal and do your Python 3 loops.py, and make sure that output's the same, and then we'll move on to functions. Oh, meaning you can lower it on your own end, Guido? Yeah, I don't know why I had it set to 60 frames per second anyway. That's a gaming streamer thing, and we are definitely not gaming. We're looking at We're looking at text and my mug in a tiny corner. So we're definitely on the high end of things, that's for sure. All right, Maya, waiting on feedback from you to make sure that that loop works for you, and we can move on to functions. We out here trying to function. Am I right? Let's see if I missed anything in chat here. Larry Close, not Indiana, Illinois, but we're right next to each other. Maya, make sure you save your file before you try to compile it. I know you do that a lot. I say that because I do it a lot, and she, since she's the rookie, I make fun of her for it. Okay, Maya's ready to move on to functions. So as mentioned, functions are cool because you can write a block of code once, and you can call it many, many, many times throughout your entire project. Let's type a simple one up and see how we're doing. We're going to right click on our project folder, new file. We're going to call this one funct.py. Try not to pull a Maya. We appreciate you, Maya. If you could not be yourself, that would be great. That's not true at all. Maya is an absolute doll. I hung out with Maya in DC, and she didn't shame me for my drinking, or she was very kind. My kind of peeps. Okay, function.py. So the way we determine function is we start by using the term def, and that is defining a function, and then we name the function. We're going to name this one my function. And then inside these parentheses, we would put parameters if any were necessary. There aren't going to be for this one. That I know. I've already forgotten what I said, Maya. You didn't make fun of me for my drinking that I know of. Is that? I think that's where she was going for with that. You didn't drink with us enough, by the way. Me and James were like roll dogs. We were hanging out everywhere, and Maya was rarely ever anywhere to be found. But anyway, in this function, remember we've been doing a lot of print statements, so let's just do another one. So we're going to do a hello from my function, right? So I've written my function. We're going to save and we're going to compile, right? We're going to we're going to back up and do a funct. Oops, I typed a dirty word. This stream is PG-13 and that was an accident. And all right. Oop. F-U-N-C-T. Oh, I did it again. I did a Maya. I forgot to change directories. No, I am in the right one. It's called funct.py. So Python. Oh, I typed fucnt. Typing is hard. Python 3 funct.py. Okay, well, damn it. Nothing happened, right? So I knew this was going to be the case because that's not how functions work. Functions don't automatically fire off. If they did, it would just be regular code, right? You have to call the function. So you do that by doing a that being gray concerns me a little bit. So yeah, so what I did here is I call the function by just calling the name of it, which is everything from here to here. And then when I call the function, the code within the function executes. So if I don't call the function, we get no feedback because nothing happens. Well, something happened because I forgot to save it. I did a Maya. So once again, I took my function call out. It does nothing. Put it back in. Save it. It will print this time, right? What? Oh, I forgot my... I'm surprised it even compiled. That was weird. Now runs the print statement from inside the function. So as mentioned a minute ago, we can call this. We can give this arguments, and we'll call one username, and the other greeting. Okay, and then we're going to switch this print function up just a smidge, and we're going to go back to using those replacement parameters. We're going to do a print hello, comma, %S, that is a string placeholder. %D was the decimal placeholder from my function. Oops. I wish you %S. Oop. Why did it do that? Stop it. Okay, so we're going to close this down so we can see what's going on here. So if we call my function and pass it a username and a greeting, it's going to replace whatever we pass for username for this %S, and it's going to replace whatever we pass for greeting with this. And we're doing that here in the print statement because these are how you know. So the first placeholder gets the first argument in here. The second placeholder gets the second argument in here, and that's how that's going to work. So let's see what happens when we call it without passing it any parameters. It probably will what we call shit the bed. Yes, that's exactly what happened. It is looking for those two arguments, and it refuses to run until it gets them. So let's pass it Big J for the name, and then greeting, you're a dope ass programmer. Okay? So now it has two arguments. Huh. Well, the grammar's horrible, but as you can see though, my arguments got replaced. There's Big J right there instead of %S, right? And then here, you're a dope ass programmer instead of %S. So that is the very first baby function. Now let's talk about an actual usable function, right? Let's do a sum of two numbers. And then we're going to pass it two numbers. We'll call them A and B. Maya, are you keeping up all right? This is for you. I need some feedback from you. I'm going to get a sip of tasty beverage while I wait. I'm just glad there's no delay on chat, because if there were a 4-second delay back... just using the comma like delimiter or concatenation. Michael, that's another valid method. Okay, Maya's keeping up well. We can carry on now. So we're going to write a function called sum two numbers. We're going to pass it two arguments. And then what we're going to do is we're going to return A plus B. So this is going to work fine as long as we pass integers that can be added. If we pass a string as an argument, we're going to be it's going to poo-poo in the bed. Sum two numbers. We're going to pass it 1 and 2. Should get a 3. Am I right? What's going on? Why didn't that? Oh. Sum two numbers, it ran it, and it returned A and B, but I have to assign that to a, let's see, we're gonna go sum equals sum two numbers. So this return A plus B will return A plus B to sum, and then we will print sum. Alright, this should give us the output that I thought I would get a minute ago. So we see there that our sum of 1 plus 2 is 3. We can change the arguments and get a much larger number for fun. As you can see, 1,234 plus 4,321 is 5,555. And it shows in our output. Maya, do you... Uh-oh, did I yawn on stream? Am I making my viewers tired, Larry? My bad. I have to put you on pause to yawn, I guess. We got a basic understanding of how, like, simple functions work there, Maya? And by the way, we can write all of these functions. Yeah, Larry, dude, yesterday was the end of a 4-day, like, marathon to study for 2 exams. Then I just took the second exam yesterday before our company holiday party that we had yesterday afternoon. And then I went to a friend's house that evening and we, like, worked on a podcast that we're trying to put together. No! A podcast, and I didn't get home till about 10. But I'd been getting up at 5 a.m. and going till 10 or 11 p.m. all week, Monday through Thursday. And I wasn't sleeping well anyway because the stress was heavy. And, well, I actually put a pretty serious beat down on both of those exams. I felt good about them, so now the stress is lifted off. And I rested like a baby last night. But I'm pretty sure I'm going to rest like a baby again tonight because I'm still tired. All right, let's see. We were about to have multiple. I'm studying computer science at the University, Southern Illinois University in Edwardsville. I'm graduating in May with my computer science degree, Bachelor of Science. Okay, so we have 2 functions up here, and let's see. Let's write 3 just for good measure. Okay, so we have 3 functions written here. The first line, well, not the first line, line 11, calls the sum of 2 numbers functions, passes at these 2 arguments, assigns that number to sum, and here we print sum. Here we'll call my function just all by itself, and then here we'll call my function with args, and then we'll pass it big J. And we'll say something nice. Our mother was kind and inspiring. Okay, so we've called these out of order. I wanted to make sure that Maya especially... what does my function do? It literally just prints the print statement underneath of it. And like I say here, the function calls are in a different order than the functions, right? So not fully. Let me bring this down to the bottom and really jumble them up. But just to prove the point that these are referenced after the fact. When this line of code script is called, it pulls this entire function out of memory and then runs it. So this will print this will print this, and replace the arguments in the places for %s, and this will sum these two numbers and then print it. So save. No! Function and function are not the same thing. Function. I told you spelling is hard. I didn't have to take any spelling classes at college. Yeah, it works with strings, but it's not necessarily something that I want to talk about on day one. But yes, I was aware of that. Let's see here. So here we got, yo dog, you're a great person. So the third function executed first, right? And that's because it was called first. And then next, we greet Big J and tell him that his mother was kind and inspiring. And then finally, we run the sum two numbers. Actually, sum two numbers, instead of doing a return here, I could just do a print statement. Right? And get rid of the return. And then I don't have to assign what it returns to anything. It just fires the print statement, right? And then we can get rid of this. And the same output, right? Even though I changed the sum two numbers function around a bit. And that, my friends, is what I have on functions. And I think there was at least one more topic. Let's get over here and look at these topics one more time. Oh, we have two more. Classes and objects. Okay, this is where it starts getting fun, Maya. This is where coding really start to see the ability to do powerful things other than assign x's, the number 2, and strings to a variable called name. Objects are fun. That's when you start creating your own variables, your own very complex variables. Your variable has a bunch of variables in it that you can change around. We'll call our variable Maya, and we'll give it a hair color variable of strawberry blonde, and we'll give it a height of not very, and we'll give it a forgetfulness of expert as far as saving files is concerned. But that's the kind of cool stuff that we can make a variable called Maya and give it all that functionality. And that is what's known as a class or an object. Okay, so let's just close func.py. We don't need welcome anymore either. We're going to go create a new one called class. New file, class.py. It'll be a string, Uncle Bill, not very. Thanks for hanging out, Guido. I appreciate your support, brother. I know you're beyond this, but we appreciate having you here to talk us through and give us feedback. And I do have my notes down to get a morning stream for the other side of the pond and look into maybe lessening the intensity of the stream for those that are watching on smaller devices or lower bandwidth availability, that sort of thing. Thanks again, brother. Okay, so this is class.py. And we are going to start with something a little simpler than a Maya object. We're going to start with a class, my class. And we're going to call it my class, and then we're going to set a variable, named variable, and we're going to set it equal to blah. And then we're going to write a function inside of this class, and it's essentially okay, sorry, I got confused here. I'm trying to remember why we pass this function the argument self, but it's a print statement. Okay, so the class is what we like to think of as a template or a blueprint for an object. It's not an actual object. It is just the way the program builds the object when you create one. And how do you create an object, we ask? Well, let me just illustrate for you. Okay, so what this is going to do is this is going to create a my class object with this template, and it's going to name it my object. And then where it gets fun is when you start manipulating that object. So what we could do is do a print a my object dot variable, and this should print this string, because the my object is a my class object, and every my class object has a variable called variable, at least in the current state of the class, that has this string in it. Larry, that's a question of like class security, and that's like a week 6 topic. But yes and no. You can set it to be either way. You can set it to be modifiable outside of the class, or you can literally set it to be locked down to where only the functions inside of the class can modify the variables in the class. But just to illustrate for Maya really quick, this should print out the string blah, this print statement. So Python 3 class.py. And yay, we got a blah, right? So what if we did a my object dot function? I think that's the proper way to call that. I believe this should give us this print statement. So we should get a blah and then this print statement next. Booyah, am I right? Okay, so it's sort of an extension on variables. We've been talking about variables, and this is just sort of a next level complexity variable. It's the same thing, only it holds other variables and it holds functions, which can modify those variables. We'll get into what's called getters and setters for class files. All classes have variables. For example, class Maya. Hair color ginger, height equals, let's go with minimal, and let's see, what other, Maya, I can't remember what color your eyes were. I want to say they were green, but we're just going to do an eye color, and then we'll do a def to string self, and there we're going to do a print I wonder why that print function didn't color up. It's because I forgot my colon on the end of that to show that it was okay. I did good then. I got the hair color correct. So we're going to do a print hair color, and that is a string, so we'll do a %s, and then a height, and then we'll do another %s, and then we'll do a eye color and a %s, and then we'll close this, and then we'll set our arguments. And now I have that, and then we'll write one more function as to define Maya a little bit. And we'll write a function called did you save? And we'll just say, of course not. And now we have a class called Maya. So what we can do with this object is we can create a new one. OG Maya equals Maya. And that's how we assign a generic Maya class template to an actual OG Maya. And then we can do, let's see, we'll do an OG Maya dot toString, which should tell us all about Maya. And then we'll do a print statement. Did Maya save the file before running the script? And then we'll call, I got a typo here, don't I? OG Maya. We'll go an OG Maya dot did you save. Now, we should get Maya's bio first, and then it'll ask if she saved the file before running the script, and then it'll give us her did you save string there. Or we'll get a bunch of compile errors and see what I did wrong here. Hair color is not defined. What? Oh. Okay, I think this will probably solve my problem. Height and eye color. What happened? What have I done wrong? I've done something silly here that I'm having trouble figuring out. Oh. Okay. Okay. Let's see. We got to go back to self here. Here is where I need self dot hair color, self dot height, and self dot eye color. And here we are. Hair color ginger, height minimal, and eye color green. And did Maya save the file before running the script? Of course not. So as you can see, OG Maya is a single variable right here. But inside of the single variable of OG Maya, we have different functionality. We have a function that describes Maya called toString, which, by the way, most classes have this. It's called a toString, and it basically belches out every instance variable in a class, and it's what it's set at. Helps with troubleshooting. Can you dye OG Maya hair pink? Set hair color to pink? That's a great question, and you can. Allow me to illustrate. OG Maya dot hair color equals pink. OG Maya toString. Try again. Did we do it or not? We sure did, didn't we? So what you see here, OG Maya class dot hair color, which is an instance variable of the class. We set it equal to pink. We run the toString again, and looky here. Maya's hair color is pink. I can't change in good conscience any of the others because she is very tiny, and she has told me her eyes are green. Let's give her an aura color equals blue. And then we'll update the toString. And then we'll add here self.auracolor. Save. And we've got hair color ginger, height minimal, eye color green, aura color blue. Did Maya save the file before running the script? Of course not. And then we changed to pink and then ran it again. And as you can see here, we updated to pink. And then the aura color is there as well. So now you can start to see the potential of classes to be like super dope, super customizable, super useful variables. Let's see what else we can talk about on classes. Let's see. I think maybe constructors might be a next class topic. So we'll leave classes at that tonight, Maya, and we'll move on to our final topic of the first day programming objectives. I wish when I fold these, they would stay folded. Dictionaries. Dictionaries is one of my favorite and most used variables in Python. And it's because, so we talked about arrays, right? Where index 0 is the first thing in the array and index 1 is the second thing in the array. Well, a dictionary is the same thing, only instead of indexes iterating from 0 to however many objects there are, you can create your own indices. Meaning that everything in a dictionary, instead of having an index, has a key and a value, and you pass the keys and values when you create them. So allow me to get straight to what I'm talking about by programming a little bit. So we'll create a new file. We'll call it dicta.py. Larry's got a question for me. So, can a class have an undefined default, or does it crash? That's part of the constructors thing that I was talking about. Generally, when you write a class, you will create constructors for every possible type of instantiation of that class. So, ideally, when you create an OG, or when you create a Maya, you would be able to pass arguments to set things like eye color. Okay, let's go back to classes for one moment so I can illustrate this point. We're going to go back and we're going to change the class name from Maya to person. Okay? So now we have a more generic class. Why won't this delete these? Got my face. So now we have a person. And we know while Maya has red hair or strawberry blonde hair and is very short and tiny and has green eyes and an aura color of blue, person probably doesn't have any of those things, right? Maybe one if we're lucky, two if we found Maya's doppelganger, but rarely are they going to have those things. Well, then you're going to want to create a constructor, and you're going to want to create one for every possible scenario. You're essentially going to want to be, okay, if I only want to pass a hair color, what does it set everything else as by default, right? If I only pass a height, what does it set everything else as default? Well, here, what we'll do is we'll I can't remember how to set constructors in Python off the top of my head. But essentially, you would write a constructor that says, okay, if it has one argument, you build it this way. If it has two arguments, you build it this way. If it has three arguments, you build it this way. If it has no arguments, you set everything to these default figures. But again, that's a little beyond what we would probably talk about on a first day. But it's a great question. We were going back to dictionaries, but I think I already created a file, didn't I? I already created a dicta.py. So we're going to call our first dictionary phone book. Okay, and an array, when you declare it, you put square brackets. In a dictionary, we use curlies. And that's how you tell Python it's a dictionary instead of an array. So remember, in arrays, if we did a phone book, open square bracket, close square bracket, and 0, and if that were an array, that would return the first object in that array. But in terms of dictionaries, we have to put the key of that key value paired in here. So phone book John. So that's our index. Our index is John, which again, it makes it more natural to recall that information. If you have a phone number, you want to be able to associate that with a name, not an index, right? An index is 0. That's meaningless to a human being. But if you can apply an index that is the person's name, well, then it's easy to recall, right? So we do John is the key, and we'll set it equal to 618-555-1234. Okay? So what that's going to do is, if that John doesn't exist, it's going to create it, and then it's going to put the value as this figure right here. If it does exist, it's going to change the value to this right here. And that's one place you have to be careful. You can often change a value of a key that you didn't mean to because you didn't know you were duplicating it. In which case you put an if loop. You do if John equals null, then put it in here. If it doesn't equals null, provide feedback that says, hey, John already exists. Are you sure you want to replace this? That sort of thing. So we'll do a phone book Jack. Oop, not curly, square. Jack, not hack, not lowercase jack. Equals 618 655 9998. That's Jack's number, and then we'll do one more phone number. Why do I keep doing curly? Part of programming in Java all day and then teaching Python at night means Java uses a lot of curly braces. We saw our Hello World in Java. There was curly braces for the class, curly braces for the main argument, and curly braces for loops. It's hard to have it to break. But we're going to give Jill, got to rep the ladies. Jill has a phone number of 618-655, all zeros because it's fake, because it's none of your business. Okay, let's see here. So we've set this, and then we're going to do a print phone book. So what this should do is print an array that holds a tuple with a name and a number in it. So a tuple is just essentially a two-item. Oops, I ran the wrong thing and I didn't save either. I pulled a Maya. Let's see, Python 3 dicta.py. Okay, so you see here, inside of those curly braces, we have a John colon his number, comma, Jack colon his number, comma, Jill colon her number, comma, right? So, if you just wanted to build this without declaring the phone book and then doing that one at a time, you could have done it in a very similar way to the output that you see. We'll do a phone book 2 equals Joe colon 618 655 1598, comma, Maya colon, I don't know what Arizona's area code is, and it doesn't matter because I'm not giving you Maya's number anyway. And then, okay, so we're going to leave this phone book with 2, and then we'll do a print PB2. So you can see that that's just two different ways of putting data into our dictionary. It's also dictionary. I think Python's the only one that calls this data structure a dictionary. I think in like Java and C++, they're called hash maps. Actually, it might even be called a vector in C++ or C. But they're essentially the same thing. Instead of indices, they have a key. And they're much more intuitive to use and move data around in. Okay, so let's say we want to remove a value from the first phone book. We'll do a delete phone book, and then we have to tell it which key we want to delete. Let's get rid of John. He was a punk. He didn't buy Maya's drinks when they were out hanging out, so he's got to go. And then we'll do another print phone book so you can see, and we'll go ahead and comment these two lines out so you can just see the same phone book over top of each other. But you should see the phone book fully printed, and then the phone book reprinted without John in it because he didn't buy Maya's drinks. And there you have it. John got booted. No longer in the black book because he doesn't know how to treat a lady. What next? What can we talk about next in dictionaries? Let's see. Okay, so there's also a function of phone books called pop. So we could do a phone book dot pop, and then we could tell it here which. We'll get rid of Jack this time because he pulled the same stupid stunt. And then Maya's just going to let Jill buy her drinks from now because she's the only one that acts right when they hang out. So, and then in the end, we should only have Jill left, right? And as you can see there, we only have Jill left. And that, Maya, concludes day one, and it's taken us approximately 2 hours and 15 minutes to get through that, it looks like, even with the technical difficulties. So I think I'm going to hang on to this, and I know that Ben was wanting to do a stream like this, and I know that others that are here that are more advanced than day one but not at month 6 yet probably have topics that they want discussed. So I'm going to, when the boss lady gets back from First Friday at the Science Center tonight, probably around 10 p.m., which is a couple hours away, I'm going to run by her I'm not sure what you mean there, Larry. But anyway, I'm going to talk to her about doing this like on a Monday night, and I'm going to try to get something in for everybody each evening. We're going to have some fun. We're going to tell some jokes. We're going to try to make some people laugh, and we're going to try to help people learn without, going to school and going through the 5 years of a whole lot of, busy work and very little actual learning. When we can talk about specific topics and we can work on code together. And I think I'm going to look into a couple of beginner projects that we could get through inside of 2 hours. Okay, let's write a calculator program, a program that I can type in the command line, add, like a command something like this. Your calculator's running, and imagine we have a calculator prompt here, and we can type add 1, 2. And when we hit enter, we get that is the reply prompt. For example, let's just get that prompt. Okay, so now we have the Python prompt, and we could do A equals 1, B equals 2, A plus B equals 3, yay, right? So our program would have an add function. Okay, and then when you call the add function from the command line, then it would spit that out. That sort of thing. We'll try to do that. I will try to vary them in difficulty. The more difficult ones we'll have to do across like 4 streams. The easy ones, like building the calculator, we could probably get in well inside of a 2-hour stream. But please do give the feedback on Slack. I know that Nancy and Susie with the social media gurus are interested in everyone's feedback on what they would like to see, because Pamela has already allowed me to commit to like working from home one night a week to do this stream. And I like working from home. I'm comfortable here. I love my own hardware. Maya and I got to figure out a way to talk because this was nonsense. Wait, you want to make F5 insert date and time in Notepad. So you're talking about creating a keyboard shortcut that inserts the date and time? That's probably just a script that you could do with Notepad Plus, but yeah, Michael, that's also true. Python has a ton of built-in things. Unfortunately, those aren't quite as conducive to teaching how they work, and that add function had somebody write it and include it in a library, and it's much more complex than the add to number function we just did. Essentially, what it does is it counts the arguments passed, creates a temporary variable, iterates through all the variables that or all the arguments that it's passed, and adds each one to that temporary variable, and then returns whatever's in the temporary variable. All right, Larry, we'll have to chat more when I haven't been talking for 3 straight hours and working since early this morning. But I am going to call it a day. I'm going to go grab maybe a cocktail at my favorite watering hole, and I appreciate everybody showing up and hanging out. What was the average viewer on the stream? I never even looked at it to see where we were in that. I could have swore I saw 8 or 9 for the most part. Yeah, it's at 10 now, so that's good. That's worth showing up for. That's worth spending my evening on, especially if we get folks interacting with us in the chat, doing fun stuff. But anyway, calling it an evening, and hope to see y'all back soon. I think I'm going to try to figure out how to host someone. I think it should. Oh, Grey's Anatomy time. Thanks again, Larry, for coming out. I think it may auto-host when I close it down, and I think CosmoQuest has auto-host set. So I am out, ladies and gents. Have a great night.